Right, so I hope that you can see me. Welcome to what is a new sort of embarkment. You can tell this is relatively new, a new series and a new way of presenting on Baldwin Sports Media. What I'm going to do is when I started this channel, I wanted to have a basically a place to discuss the NFL news on a daily basis. And as I've said, the channel and the whole Baldwin Sports Media empire, if you would, has sort of gone through a couple of changes every now and then. But now that we've sort of turned the year, things have changed a little bit more. I've decided to sort of branch out and do things a new way. So I have been focusing on, for instance, TikTok a lot in the past couple of months. But what I wanted to do here was basically take the views that I have on TikTok, because you can only keep them for a short period of time, and then it also goes on to Instagram as well. But give me a chance to take the things from TikTok and then expand them a little bit more. So rather than having to work on it in 60 to 90-second chunks, I can delve into it for a good 5 minutes if I wanted to. So that's what this is all going to be about. This is the studio where the TikToks are recorded. Everyone who watches will know the black background, which has still got some creases in it. I'm trying to work out how to get them out, but there's only so much that I can do in a short span of time. And I said this is still a work in progress. So, but yeah, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to start off today by talking about some news that's come out over the past couple of hours, and we'll start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers, my team. So one ourselves on a strong foot, and a team you know well, and that's that they are going to be hiring. At least reports seem to indicate that they are going to be hiring former Atlanta Falcons head coach Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. Now, the Steelers, of course, have needed an offensive coordinator. You could argue they needed one for a couple of years, but Matt Canada wasn't quite doing the job. He lost his job in mid-season and was taken over by Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner, sort of dual role, with one again being the offensive coordinator, one being the player. It was a bit of a mess through the whole thing, as was really the whole offense, going through three different quarterbacks through the season. But now the Steelers look as if they are going to go into 2024 with one man as the job, and it's going to be Arthur Smith. Now, Arthur Smith, before he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, and that's where I sort of need to start this conversation at, because Arthur Smith, I think, as an offensive coordinator, was okay. Again, he wasn't necessarily like a Kyle Shanahan or like you're seeing with Mike McDaniel or Eric Bieniemy when he was with the team. He's not revolutionizing the game. He just was just very good at his job. Now, as some people have pointed out on social media, anyone can be good at that job. Anyone can be offensive coordinator for the Titans, because it was just tell the quarterback, turn around and hand Derrick Henry the ball. It was pretty simple as that. But it was effective. They did have one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL. And if you look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do as a side, then it kind of works, because if you saw how they built their team in the draft last year, it was get Najee Harris the ball, build up a running game. That's why we picked up Broderick Jones as a tackle with the first pick. That's why I picked up who was a Darnell Washington, rather, who was basically built like a tackle later on, to have him as an extra blocker, and he was used predominantly as a blocking tight end this season. And with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, you have that 1-2 punch that can create a very, very strong running game. And if you have Arthur Smith, then, he was good at running. You can see the connection that is being made with Arthur Smith. My one concern is, although it's not necessarily a concern, is we didn't really need the running game to improve. Like, if we needed the running game to improve, like we did, in Najee Harris's first couple of years, for instance, then I could see why you go for Arthur Smith. But the fact of the matter is, we have a very good running game. It's not the best in the NFL, but it's a very good running game. We needed someone that could develop a quarterback, because there is still a lot of faith and expectation being placed on Kenny Pickett. And, I wanted someone that could help develop Kenny Pickett. So that's why when there was talk of like Jaron Johnson, who was the passing game coordinator, a bunch of players who weren't offensive coordinators, but were passing game coordinators. That's who I felt we should have been looking. That's who I felt we should have been looking for. I mean, we did look at it, but that's who I felt we should have been hiring at the very least. So Arthur Smith just comes across as a very uninspiring head coach appointment. Like, the fact that he did, not the greatest with the Atlanta Falcons, maybe that is the way the Pittsburgh Steelers are thinking. That, if you've watched the Pittsburgh Steelers for a couple of years and sort of know how they work, is Mike Tomlin doesn't really want to bring in coaches who he feels are going to be head coaches later on, because he knows if you bring someone in and they're going to be important and they're going to be, revolutionizing, and they're going to be successful, then they're going to be taken off and move on to be a head coach somewhere else, which is why you don't really see that many Mike Tomlin coordinators move on and be head coaches elsewhere. It's just not the way he works. So maybe the fact that Arthur Smith didn't do that great of a job in Atlanta, maybe that, what's the phrase, cooks his, burns the bridges of him ever being an NFL head coach again. So he's going back to being a coordinator where he can stay forever, a bit like Josh McDaniels, for the most part. So maybe that's the line of thinking, but at the same time, you understand it. But when I wanted an offensive coordinator, as I said, I wanted someone that could help develop Kenny Pickett. That's what I wanted. And I don't think we've got that in Arthur Smith. Now, maybe that is sort of a sign of the times. Maybe that means we're going to be moving away from Kenny Pickett in the future, in the not too distant future. Rather, maybe they're going to stick with Mason Rudolph because he's already developed as a quarterback, and that's who they're going to go with. So, however you want to put it, this appointment was built for the running game. Again, it's not spectacular, but I'll take it. Again, if we can have that as the foundation, then fine. Local reporter Mark Madden was basically saying that they want to turn Kenny Pickett into Ryan Tannehill, and he'll take Ryan Tannehill because he doesn't think Kenny Pickett can even achieve Ryan Tannehill's stakes. And I'm sort of along that line of thinking that if he can get something better out of Kenny Pickett, fine, but I just don't know if he's going to be the guy that turns him into what you would want a franchise quarterback to be in the likes, in the mold of Ben Roethlisberger, for instance. So a bit uninspiring, but hopefully we can get something out of it. Now, sticking on the offensive side of the ball for our second story of the day, and I'm not too sure if we can see this as a surprise, but offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson, is going to be staying with the Detroit Lions. Now, he was seen as a very likely head coaching candidate for this cycle. When you look at the work that he's done with Jared Goff, the Detroit Lions were top 5 in yards and points in the past 2 seasons. So again, you look at that progression that you would think, yes, maybe he's now ready to be a head coach. And there were talks that he was going to be contacted by a bunch of teams, but they obviously never came to pass. But what I think this sort of says, I don't think this is necessarily a slate against Ben Johnson that, he wasn't ready for it, or, he's too young or whatever. I think this more speaks to the culture that the Detroit Lions have built. That I think Ben Johnson, in his heart of hearts, and maybe this played part in the negotiations that he's already had, I think it played into it that I don't think he wants to leave Detroit right now. I think he knows what this Lions team is capable of. Because, again, they've made great strides under Dan Campbell. And whilst Dan Campbell may not get the reputation of a tactician, like a tactician in the way that Kyle Shanahan is, or an offensive guru that Mike McDaniels does, for instance, he's got a culture there that is infectious, and no one can really deny that it seems like a great place to play, with a great motivating head coach in Dan Campbell. And if you look at where the Detroit Lions got to this season, it wasn't necessarily it wasn't Ben Johnson's fault that they didn't get to the Super Bowl. It was really down to Dan Campbell in a way. And as I said in my TikTok when I was analyzing the game on Sunday, by the way, links to social medias are down in the description below if you want to go check those out. But how's the best way to put this? Like, there's what the Lions did. I completely lost my train of thought. That's why. Then again, this is a live thing. This is why we're sort of playing around. This will get better as we move on. But when you look at what the Detroit Lions did, again, that was it. Dan Campbell got them to a place, and he will use that as a learning curve. Like next year, if they find themselves in the NFC Championship game, which I think they have every possibility of doing, is right. He'll know that what got them there might need to change. So with his aggressiveness on going forward, on 4th down, for instance, something, again, it got them there, but in the big stages, when you've got to be a little bit more conservative and a little bit more smart, maybe you change up your attitude then. he'll take that and he'll use that as a learning curve. So the next year when they do get there, they will kick that field goal. They will punt on that fourth down rather than not turn the ball over. It's all things like that. So the Lions have the possibility to go one step further. And I think Ben Johnson knows that they can be part of something special in Detroit, and he wants to stay a part of that. Like again, if it comes to it next year and they get to the NFC Championship, maybe then yes, then the Lions are sort of going as far as they can go, but it's not down to anything he does, and then maybe he'll take the maybe he'll take the step forward. But I think the Detroit Lions, as a team as a whole, want to give it at least one more go and see where they can take this team, and maybe even take them to that Super Bowl. So that's why I think Ben Johnson was. Again, personally, this isn't me reading into anything. I don't think he was ever fully committed 100% to leaving, even if he had a great job offer. I feel that the pull of Detroit, shall we say, was too much for him after the fantastic season that I had. So that's why I think Ben Johnson is going to be staying, well, why he is staying, but that's why I think he made the decision to stay with the Detroit Lions. And just one final note. I'm sure if you saw the NFC Championship games, again, I don't know what country you're watching this from, so I don't know how the adverts and the broadcasting rules sort of change in your country, but there was a lot of adverts centered around Africa during the NFC and AFC Championship games. And there was going to be an announcement basically after halftime of the Super Bowl, and it featured they were shooting in Accra in Ghana, which is a lovely city, by the way. I went there in 2010 as part of a school project, so lovely place. But it was Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, and Cam Jordan of the New Orleans Saints, basically playing around and doing football things. Like I'm sure Saquon Barkley was hurdling over like a market stall or something in Ghana. And basically, what a lot of people on social media have read into this is, right, that is where the NFL is going next, in terms of the international series. Now, again, that is also my belief. Again, no inside information or no sort of news anywhere. It's one of those logic dictates that is what they're trying to do. Because obviously there's the announcement that there's going to be a game in Brazil. We've got the games in Germany. We've had the games in London for so long rather. So it looks like Africa is going to be the next stage. But what I wanted to talk about, and again, I talked about this on my TikTok, but now I can expand on it a little bit further, is I don't think the game would be, if they're going to put the game in Africa, I don't know why it would be Ghana. Because the NFL has got a very big presence there with the Uprise Academy from former NFL player O.C. Junior, who I've had a chance to get to know over the years. A great guy. And the Uprise Academy in terms of bringing kids from Africa and getting them into the international player pathway or the NFL Academy it's a great story, and it's a great footprint, and sort of like a high school system in Africa where they're getting players ready for the NFL. That's based out of Nigeria, and again they bring in talent from all over sort of Africa, but it's based in Nigeria. I figured, why would they put the game in Ghana? Because I've taken a look at this. The stadium sizes, obviously the first thing you look at whenever they go to anywhere abroad is where are they going to be playing. And the Baba Yara Stadium only has capacity of 40,528 and is the 63rd, again, this is going off Wikipedia, is the 63rd biggest or largest stadium in Africa. The whole of Africa, 63rd biggest. And the biggest one in Ghana, the Accra Sports Stadium, is only a little bit smaller at 40,000 and is the 71st biggest in Africa. So I'm thinking, why would they put it in Ghana when you have the links to Nigeria, but also more than that, in terms of a capacity, in terms of a stadium, and you want to make this the big thing, why would you put it in Ghana? Why would you not put it to Nigeria? Have that, or South Africa, for instance, where they have experience of hosting big games. They've hosted Rugby World Cups. They've hosted FIFA World Cups. The only African nation to do it. Why would you not put it in? Egypt has the biggest stadium in Africa at 93,000. Why would you not want to put it there? So I want the NFL to expand as much as possible. Again, I'm not going to say I'm a product of, but I have seen people being a product of the growth of American football in the United Kingdom, for instance, of how many fans were watching when the NFL International Series kicked off compared to what it is now and the growth of the game. I think it's great for everyone. You can see the results of taking the games abroad and taking them internationally. So wherever they want to do it is fine by me. If you want to take it to Africa, take it to Australia, take it to South America, take it to China, Japan, or wherever you want to take it, take it. I think there's a market for it wherever you want to go. But when it comes to Africa, this is the sort of bit in the back of my mind. Maybe they were just using Accra as the setting for it, and it's going to be an Africa, an expansion of NFL Africa, and they just chose Ghana and Accra as the place to do it in. But then I just thought, again, using that logic, why would you not use like Lagos in Nigeria for the same sort of thing, or somewhere in South Africa or Egypt? Or there are a whole bunch of places you could have chosen. This is not to disrespect. This is not to disrespect or put down Accra, again, great city, but it just doesn't make sense that why would you make a big point of having it in Ghana if it wasn't going to be Ghana next along and have that be the place you're going to go. So it looks as if it's going to be Ghana, but at the same time, I don't really agree with the decision to make it Ghana. If that's what you're, if you could agree with me on that, or if you see my line of logic on that. So that's really the three pieces of news that we have today. Again, been a bit of a slow thing. As I've said, this whole thing has changed during the course of the season. We would have had this, during the regular season, and it would have had more news, but it's been a bit of a slow start. Now there's only two teams playing, and there's only one game left. It's sort of slowed down a bit. There will be news, of course, coming round. We've got the NFL honors coming up. We've got the Pro Bowl, where there'll be storylines or whatever. Still a couple of coaching hires to be announced, a couple of coordinators as well. There's still news to be done, but obviously at this time of year, it's sort of all gravitating towards the Super Bowl rather than everybody in the league having their own news pieces and news agendas and storylines that are coming out. So that's really it. So again, this is going to be a growing thing. So things may not look the same next time. Like I'll get the camera work lined up, for instance, because I do want to show off this fantastic mug that my wife luckily got me, and my two helmets, which have been with me through the whole thing. But as I've said, we've had to make some changes to how things are done. So we'll get this all sorted out and more streamlined moving forward. But at the end of the day, this is just what I'm doing for, this is all just fun and lighthearted. And hopefully you agree that I've, brought you the news in, hopefully a way that you find enjoyable. But as I've said in my previous videos, let me know what you guys think in the comments, in the chat. Reach out to me on the other social media platforms, in the comments on my other videos and what have you. Just feel free to reach out to me on whatever platform you feel best to do so on. And if you have a question or a topic that you want me to cover, by all means, again, shout it over, and then I'll cover it for you. So yeah, that's all I have really for today. You guys have a nice day, and yep, until next time, I'll see you later.